The first chill of dawn swept across the Montana wilderness as Elias Morgan tightened the straps of his weather-worn pack and stared at the shadowed mountain range ahead. It was a place most people admired from a distance, a postcard image, a scenic backdrop, a wild beauty meant to be observed, not entered. But Elias had not come for beauty. He had come for an answer. All his life he'd heard his grandfather speak of a valley hidden somewhere beyond the mountains, a place untouched by roads, maps, or time. A place rumored to hold the last pieces of their family's history. Most dismissed the story as an old man's fading memory, a fireside tale exaggerated over the decades. But after his grandfather died, Elias found a hand-drawn map tucked into a wooden box beneath the bed. The ink was faded, the lines uncertain, but one word was clear: beyond. So Elias left behind the noise of cities, the weight of unfinished responsibilities, the ache of a life that always felt slightly out of place. He drove until roads became dirt, then dust, then nothing. Now only mountains stood between him and the truth. He took his first step onto the trail, boots sinking slightly into damp soil. The forest greeted him with crisp air filled with pine and earth. Birds chattered as though sharing stories. A nearby creek whispered over smooth stones. Even the silence of the mountains felt alive, watching, measuring him, deciding whether he was worthy of what waited beyond. By midday, the sun had climbed high, warming the landscape and revealing more of its rugged magnificence. Towering pines lined the narrow path, their branches weaving sunlight into shifting golden patterns on the forest floor. Elias followed the trail carefully, mindful of the fading lines on his grandfather's map. He moved with patience, scanning every bend, every ridge, searching for landmarks drawn decades ago. Hours passed, the climb grew steeper, sweat trickled down his neck as the trail thinned, winding precariously along the side of a rocky slope. Far below, the valley stretched out like a patchwork quilt of forests and glistening streams. The higher he climbed, the more the world beneath him seemed to shrink. No towns, no people, just endless wilderness. Near evening, he reached a clearing and set camp. As the sky darkened, the mountains glowed with the last embers of daylight. Elias built a small fire, warming his numb fingers. The crackling flames cast shadows across the trees, making them sway like ancient guardians whispering secrets only the wilderness knew. He opened the wooden box he carried in his pack, the same box that had held the map. Inside lay a compass, an old photograph, and a folded letter. He held the picture up to the firelight. In it, his grandfather stood beside a younger man Elias didn't recognize. Behind them rose the same Montana mountains, yet the photo captured something different, an opening between two cliffs, almost hidden in shadow. Elias compared the image with the map. The angle, the formation, the sharp ridge on the right, it matched. Excitement surged through him. He wasn't chasing a myth. There was something real beyond those peaks. Night settled fully now. The fire burned low. Overhead, the sky unfurled a blanket of stars so vast and clear that Elias felt small in the most humbling way. He listened to the crackle of flames, the rustle of distant animals, the whispering wind gliding through the pines. In that moment, he felt connected to the land, not as a visitor, but as someone meant to be there. At dawn he woke to frost coating his tent and mist drifting through the trees. After packing his gear, he pressed onward. The mountains towered above him, indifferent yet magnificent. The trail soon disappeared altogether, swallowed by boulders and dense vegetation. Elias followed instinct and memory, climbing steep rock faces and maneuvering through narrow gaps. Several times he slipped, catching himself on jagged edges that scraped his palms. The climb demanded every ounce of strength and willpower he had. Late afternoon brought him to a ridge where two cliffs formed a narrow corridor. His heartbeat quickened, It was the same formation from the photograph. The same shadows, the same sharp curvature of stone. Elias stepped forward, almost reverently. As he passed between the cliffs, the wind shifted, funneling through the gap and brushing past him like a greeting. On the other side, the land changed. The air felt warmer, softer. The trees grew taller, their leaves shimmering with unusual brightness. The ground was lush, blanketed with thick moss that cushioned his steps. Birds he had never seen before darted through the branches, their colors vivid against the greenery. A river flowed nearby, its water so clear that the stones beneath glittered like crystals. Elias stood still, jaw slack with awe. His grandfather hadn't been mistaken. Beyond the mountains of Montana truly existed a hidden world. He walked deeper into the valley, absorbing every sight. The river curved gently around the base of a towering oak tree. Wildflowers carpeted the meadows in vibrant blues, purples, and yellows. A herd of elk grazed near the far edge, unbothered by his presence. Everything felt untouched. Here, a place time had decided to pass by completely. As he traveled farther, Elias noticed remnants of human presence. Smooth stones arranged in circular patterns, wooden posts barely visible under vines, and paths that looked shaped by footsteps long vanished. His heartbeat quickened. Someone had lived here, someone his grandfather knew. The sun dipped low as he found a small cabin nestled against a ridge. Its roof sagged, its window cracked, but its door remained intact. Moss crept up the wooden planks, and the air smelled faintly of cedar. Touching the door, Elias felt a heaviness in his chest, like something buried deep inside him had finally surfaced. He pushed the door open. Dust swirled, light streamed through broken window panels, illuminating the interior. A wood-burning stove sat in one corner. A table lay overturned, a shelf lined with glass jars and coils of rope stood against a wall. At the far end of the room was a single bed with a wool blanket neatly folded across it, as though waiting for someone's return. Elias explored slowly, reverently. He found an old journal beneath the bed. The leather cover cracked when he opened it. Inside, his grandfather's handwriting flowed across the yellowed pages. "This place," one entry read, "is not meant for many. Only for those who understand the silence of mountains." Elias felt a lump form in his throat as he read more. His grandfather had lived in the valley for several years with the man from the photograph, a friend named Samuel, a naturalist who believed the land should remain hidden and protected. They documented plants, animals, and weather patterns. They wrote about peace, solitude, and the sanctity of untouched wilderness. Then the entries ended abruptly. The last page contained a single sentence: "If anyone finds this place, may they protect it, as we once did." Elias closed the journal slowly. He finally understood. His grandfather hadn't simply told stories. He had preserved a secret, a refuge. The weight of responsibility settled over Elias like a mantle. He wasn't meant to claim the valley but to guard it, to ensure it remained beyond the reach of those who would destroy its purity. That night he camped near the cabin. The valley glowed under moonlight, peaceful and still. Elias gazed up at the stars, the journal, resting beside him. He thought of his grandfather's voice, the map, the stories told by firelight. They were no longer distant, imaginary tales. They were alive around him. In the morning he walked the valley again, absorbing every sound and texture. He touched ancient bark, felt river mist on his face, watched hawks circle above. This place was sacred, not because of its beauty, but because it had survived untouched. After several days, Elias knew he had to return. Not to abandon the valley, but to protect it from afar. To ensure no one else stumbled upon it unprepared. Before leaving, he placed the journal back inside the cabin, along with a letter of his own, written not for others but for the valley itself, promising to keep its secret. The journey back over the mountains was harder, as though the valley wished to hold on to him. But when he finally stepped beyond the cliffs and onto familiar ground, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Elias looked back once. The gap between the mountains seemed almost invisible now, like the land itself was guarding its secret. He turned and walked down the trail, the weight of his discovery resting warmly in his chest. The world beyond the mountains of Montana would stay hidden, untouched, and pure, not because fate demanded it, but because he would protect it. And somewhere far behind him, in a valley bathed in morning light, the mountains stood silent and proud, keeping their promise to those who understood their quiet magic.